wherever you are joining with us in this event at the launching of the report of the ASEAN oil and gas updates, as well as the ASEAN power updates 2021. Today, 8 September 2021. As you know, that this is part of our launching of the report of the ASEAN energy update in 2021. The economic growth of the ASEAN has been one of the most dynamic and the fastest in the world. ASEAN is one of the most preferred investment destination in the world, and the region economy expected to grow over 5% per year to become the fourth largest economy in the world by 2030. Yet such economic growth prospect is affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused the unprecedented effect to the industry and sector across the global economy. The energy sector, which is vital to economic growth, has not been spared. However, the energy has the potential to play a critical role in the global reconstruction and recovery efforts. Today, myself, Benny Suryadi, as Manager of Power, Fossil Fuel, Alternative Energy, and Energy Storage of the ASEAN Center for Energy, has a privilege to become a host and moderator on our launching event, where we are going to share with you the latest situation on the oil and gas sectors, as well as in the power sectors in ASEAN, to provide you with some kind of reference, the latest information to become a reference for you in sailing in the energy sectors in this pandemic challenging era. We will start with the key message to be delivered by Dr. Nuki Agia Utama, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy. Dr. Nuki, may I pass it to you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benny Suryadi. Good afternoon, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Honorables, Mrs. Krongkan Kurawat, the Vice President, International Business Strategy and Development Department, Corporate Strategy, PTT PLC. Engineer Wan Syakirah Wan Abdullah, Head of Business Assessment and Engineering, TNB Renewables. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this special webinar to launch two ASEAN Energy Reports 2021, namely the ASEAN Oil and Gas Updates 2021 and ASEAN Power Updates 2021. As previously mentioned, the economic growth of ASEAN has been one of the most dynamic and fastest in the world. ASEAN is one of the most preferred investment destinations in the world, and the region's economy is expected to grow at over 5% per year to become the fourth largest economy in the world by 2030. Yet, such economic growth prospect is affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused unprecedented shock to industrial sectors, transportation sectors, and also sectors across the globe. The energy sectors, which is vital to economic growth, has not been spared. However, energy has the potential to play a critical role in global reconstruction and recovery efforts. ASEAN remains cautiously optimistic that economic growth would rebound or achieve an even higher growth if ASEAN addresses at the regional and national levels the challenges of greater integration and innovation of the areas of trade, investment, human capital, and regulatory coherence, while capitalizing on global megatrends and other emerging trade-related issues. Updated data and information on the energy are crucial for all stakeholders in designing and implementing the relevant policies and programs, particularly in the challenging era. The ASEAN Center for Energy, as the implementer of the regional energy cooperation in Southeast Asia, has a role as a knowledge hub in which provides a knowledge repository for ASEAN member states and services through data management, publication, and dissemination. One of the ACE products are the ASEAN Energy Database System, or IDS, and it contains official ASEAN statistic data and related energy news and policies to help you out to understand the energy landscape of ASEAN and each of its member states. These two reports that we are going to launch, namely the ASEAN Oil and Gas Update 2021 and also the ASEAN Power Update 2021, are the part of the IDS, and it will be released to public on a regular basis. According to the ASEAN Oil and Gas Updates 2021, last year is very challenging in oil and gas industry. The pandemic has impacted in upstream and downstream together, and the production of oil declined greatly and hit the lowest point of production in 2020. In addition, oil and gas reserves decreased by 20% and 30% respectively compared to 2010 level, which is caused the concern about security of supply in the future. The ASEAN Power Update 2021 will provide power status development in ASEAN towards the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation target of 35% VRE share in installed capacity by 2025, and will also provide an overview of COVID-19 impact to the ASEAN power sector status. In 2020, last year, the demand of electricity dropped significantly as the economic slowed down. However, there was a glimpse of hope for green economy, which will lead the recovery pathway for the region, seeing that renewable energy plants had more significant capacity addition compared to fossil fuel power plants in 2020. The lead author of its report will later present the key findings of the reports will be discussed with the commentators. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we do realize the need of collaboration from all stakeholders, and therefore we are thankful to both speakers who are joining us today, Ms. Krongkan Korowat and Engineer Wan Shakira Wan Abdullah, for sharing their insight. And we hope that the two newly launched reports, including the report discussion later, will be a good reference for us in shaping the future of energy sector. And for this, we would like to welcome the involvement and participants, as well as from all of you who are working in oil and gas sectors, as well as on power sectors. Look forward to a fruitful discussion and the success of the event. Thank you very much again for your kind attention. Stay safe and stay healthy. Back to you, Benny. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nuki Agiautama, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Center for Energy, for delivering the key message, highlighting the important updates on the oil and gas sectors, as well as on the power sectors in the Southeast Asia region. Just to have some memory and that one, we will have a photo session with all of speakers and commentators to joining with us, and my colleagues will be helping us on this arrangement. So
okay, thank you, Mr. Benny, for the introduction. So everyone, please turn on your camera. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Benny.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nella, for your support. Then after having the photo session, we will go to the main topic of our report on the launching of the report, but just a few housekeeping arrangement that we will have in the agenda. We will have the presentation, launching of the report by the lead author of each of the reports, and then it will follow by a comment from our novel commentators for each section, then followed by a Q&A where all the participants, audience can join the discussion with us. So you can write your Q&A in the Q&A platform. So you can write your question there. We will address it in the last part of each section. Then we will start with the first report on the launching of the ASEAN oil and gas update that will be presented by the lead authors, Mr. Suwanto. Before he starts, just a brief introduction that Mr. Suwanto is the technical officer of the Power, Fossil Fuel, Alternative Energy and Storage department at the ASEAN Center for Energy. He's an energy enthusiast as he has a background in the both of non-renewable and renewable energy. He held a master's degree from Germany and has a previous experience in oil companies. But before he present about the report and then tell us about what's going on the oil and gas updates, we would like to request the participation and involvement from all the audience through the polling that we are going to have. So my colleague, if you can help me with this polling arrangement, then I'd like to invite everyone to share your views and comments. So to all our audience, there is a polling on your screens. We have 3 questions. This is something that you will know more when listening about the report letters. So I'd like to invite everyone to submit your thought, your guess on this polling arrangement. First one is, since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, how was the oil consumption generally in ASEAN, whether increasing, relatively steady or decreasing? Second question is, which country is predicted to have the longest gas reserve in the ASEAN, whether it's Brunei, Indonesia, or Vietnam? Transport sector is considered one of the major sectors on the oil consumption, but how much is that? Whether less than 50%, 50 to 70, or more than 70%? I think that's the polling will be live during the session, so everyone can chip in. Then we will reveal the answers letters. Right, so now I think we can go with the reports launching. As I mentioned before, it will be presented by my colleagues, Mr. Suwanto. So, Mr. Suwanto, it's your show time.
Thank you, Mr. Benny, for the introduction, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Baby, I think the presentation. Okay, so today I would like to present and launch one of the 2021 ASEAN Energy Updates entitled ASEAN Oil and Gas Updates 2021. And this is a second edition where we want to analyze the trend of oil and gas industries during 2020. And then the report update itself is planned to be published periodically. So we will have the insight about the updates every semester in September and the next in March. So next slide, please. In this first edition of updates report, we provide a comprehensive overview of current situation on oil and gas industry in ASEAN region. In this edition, there are many interesting things happen both in upstream and downstream sectors, and more or less will answer the question in the polling earlier this event. And the data itself are collected from various reliable data sources. Next slide, please. So before we are going through detailed content of the updates report, as said before, we highlighted the trend in 2020. In the upstream sector, oil and gas production has declining faster than several years before. And in terms of reserve, both oil and gas reserves are also decreased compared to 2010 level. And COVID-19 has also impacted to oil and gas consumption, where there were like mobilization restriction and slowing down of economic activities globally. Next slide. Okay, so we start detailed updates in upstream sector on oil production. ASEAN countries seems face challenging situation to exploit the oil, and this is even worsened by COVID-19 impacts during 2020. We observed that oil production was continuously declining since 2016 as depicted in the picture or in the figure. And the decline rate itself of 2020 was even faster as shown from baseline. And we also noted that Indonesia and Malaysia are two major oil producers in ASEAN region, accounted for around 70% of the total production in the region. And the faster decline rate in 2020 was caused by some operational issues like in drilling and also weather issues, and sometimes we have like under performance of new wells. And we also have like, because in most of the oil fields in ASEAN are already mature, so the production itself is declining. There are also lack of new oil field discoveries in the region. Next slide, please. On the gas production, we see from the figure that the 2020 gas production showed even greater decline and oil estimated from the export line. And we also identified that Indonesia and Malaysia are still two major gas producers in the ASEAN region. And declining gas production was due to some operational issues, and the lower gas demand also caused by COVID-19. Another thing that we noted is a reduction of LNG cargo capacity due to a lower gas demand. Next slide, please. In terms of oil reserve, total oil reserve decreased around 20% in 2020 compared to 2010 level, and it is from like 30.7 thousand million barrels to around 10.9 thousand million barrels of oil. We noted several factors that cause such decreasing trend. For example, there are no major discovery of new oil fields in last decade, since we face like challenging exploration area, for example, in deepwater areas. And then low oil price also impacted of hindering investment in exploration. Then some countries also experience an unstable political landscape, which led to complex business environment. The decreasing oil reserve may concern on security of supply of oil in the future. So we could do several efforts to add more oil or add oil reserve. For example, conducting exploration and development of new oil fields, and then creating conducive investment environment, and also conduct efficient well service and well workover of existing oil wells. And then we also like can conduct the enhanced oil recovery to improve the production from existing mature oil fields. And we can also doing sort of import planning to secure the supply of oil in the future, and the diversification of energy source to natural gas or even renewable energy is also suggested. Next slide, please. And the gas reserve also has similar trend with oil reserve, where a total proven gas reserve decreased around 35% in 2020 compared to 2010 levels, from like 5.4 billion cubic meter to 3.5 billion cubic meter. It is also noted several factors that led to decreasing gas reserve. For example, no major gas field discoveries in the last decade, and then lower gas price, a lack of gas infrastructure, for example, in Myanmar, this like corroded pipelines. And then we have also like promising gas resources, for example, in Natuna area, but in that area, the gas field has higher CO2 content that lead higher operational costs. So similar also to oil, since we have decreasing gas reserve, we may have a concern about security of energy supply in the future. We could take an action by supporting gas exploration, especially in challenging areas like the deepwater area. And then we could also support to construct reliable gas infrastructure, effective well service and walkover, and then doing a diversification of energy source to renewable energy, and creating attractive business model for high CO2 content gas field. And we might try to explore non-conventional hydrocarbon like coal-bed methane or gas hydrate. Next slide, please. Some ASEAN countries have also notable activities in both upstream and downstream sectors, including exploration, production, and refinery and distribution. For example, in upstream sector, we notified that the first oil production from Block A in Cambodia that first put on production on December last year. Another example is that Indonesia continued to conduct exploration drilling and also seismic testing, and conducting some field development to increase additional production around 10,000 BOPD or barrel per day of oil and 145 million standard cubic feet per day of gas. In downstream sector, we notified a new petroleum refinery in Lao PTR that was commissioned in November last year. Then Vietnam has a commissioning plan of the Southern Petrochemical Complex in 2022, and Trung Quat Refinery operating in an expansion by 2025. Next slide, please. On the oil and gas prices, we noted that 2020 was a special year where we experienced negative oil price for the first time in history. On 20 April 2020, WTI oil price for West Texas Intermediate oil price was minus 37.63 USD per barrel. If we look at in detail in the oil price figure, we noted that after peak oil price during 2010 to 2014, we experienced oil price fluctuation from 40 to 70 USD per barrel. And low oil price in 2022 due to Saudi Arabia and Russia oil price war, and was worsened by COVID-19. In the gas price, that 2020 hit the lowest natural gas price since the year 2000. However, we saw the recovery of both oil and gas prices in 2021 as the result of global economic recovery from the pandemic. Next slide, please. In the downstream sector, we start from the oil consumption, where we see from the figure that all ASEAN countries experience reduction in oil consumption due to COVID-19. For example, because of restriction of people mobility and force the people to work from home, or due to slowing down economic activities. Indonesia shows the largest reduction in oil consumption, around 24%. And in addition, Indonesia and Thailand are two major oil consumers in ASEAN region. If we break down oil consumption by sector, oil is still is mainly used in transportation sector for around 72%. Next slide, please. Like oil, we see from the figure that all ASEAN countries also experience reduction in gas consumption due to COVID-19. In this regard, Malaysia has the largest reduction in gas consumption in 2020 compared to 2019 level. In addition, Indonesia and Malaysia are two major gas consumers in ASEAN region. And we also noted that natural gas consumption will increase and mainly to support industrial sector. In terms of future security energy supply, natural gas would play a significant role in advancing low carbon energy in current era of energy transition to cleaner energy source. Next slide, please. Another update is about oil stockpiling, where most of ASEAN countries have oil stockpiling plans to ensure security of supply. For example, if there are any force majeure like disaster, and we should ensure to provide stable energy source. Each country has different days of stock, like Brunei has 21 days, or Thailand has even longer, 69 days for oil stock. We also note that Malaysia and Singapore don't have any obligation about stockpiling. Next slide, please. In this edition, we have a special update or thematic updates about COVID-19 impacts to oil and gas sector. And ASEAN Center for Energy through ASEAN Climate Change and Energy Project, or ASEC, has also conducted the analysis on the impact of COVID-19 to the energy sector, including oil and gas. Some key highlights from the Energy Insight, for example, that we noted that we saw decreasing oil and gas production and consumption, as well as crude price as the impact of COVID-19 that restricted the mobility and slowed down economic activities. There are also several project delay and closing the refineries that resulted challenging situation to manage the financial and business sustainability. However, we saw that LNG market become attractive to stockpile LNG due to oil and gas price drop. And then after hard time during 2020, we saw all the activities already covered this year as vaccination program is being rolled out across the world. Next slide. So before we conclude the updates report, I would like to acknowledge several data sources and then its colleagues, ASEAN member states, and ASCOP Secretariat and ASCOP members who already get valuable input to the development. We also thank to ASEP who already support and design and even publication. We hope that this updates report can be used as the reference of oil and gas situation in ASEAN region. And I think that's all, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suwanto. Brief us about the updates on the oil and gas sectors in ASEAN. Noted several highlights that 2020 is quite a challenging year on the oil and gas industry. But to discuss more about the report, I would like to invite our commentator, Ms. Krongkan Purwat. She's a Vice President, International Business Strategy and Development Department, Corporate Strategy, PTT PLC. With 20 years experience in the oil and gas industry, Ms. Krongkan Purwat has an extensive experience in the gas business, having had assignment in international business development, gas marketing with the PTT Public Company Limited in Thailand, and she also worked for the Malaysia-Thailand Joint Authority. Previously, she was the Deputy Secretary in charge of the ASEAN Council on the Petroleum. This is the association of all of the oil and gas companies in Southeast Asia, where she drives regional collaboration and support member countries to increase their capabilities. Before that, she was the Gas Business Development Department and in the PTT. Mr. Krongkan, it's very great to have you join with us this afternoon. But before I ask you about your view about the report that's just being presented by my colleagues, Would you mind sharing more with us about your work at the PTT PLC and how PTT PLC develop their new vision and strategy on energy in the future?
Yes, thank you, Benny, for introduction, a brief introduction from me. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ace, for inviting me to join the sessions today. My name is Piyaowa Kurawat, Vice President of the International Business Strategy and Development Department from PT Public Company Limited, Thailand. So, my role in PT is to formulate the international business strategy for PTT Group, to invest into the target business in the strategic countries and screening business opportunities throughout the oil and gas value chain and new business beyond energy as well. Slide, please. So let me give you a brief introduction of my company. PTT was founded 41 years ago in order to solve the oil crisis at that time. We were listed in the Stock Exchange of Thailand in 2001. So ever since then, we have a hybrid status as we are balancing between being a state enterprise and a listed company. PTT is a fully integrated oil and gas company. We have expanded our business through both upward and downward integration along oil and gas value chain. Through our subsidiaries, we have operations in exploration and productions, refineries, petrochemicals, LNG and power, coal and oil businesses. Next slide, please. This one, I would like to show you the current changing of the our mission that due to the world have changed to enter into the era of the energy transition, the technology disruption, as well as the mega trend moving to more cleaner and greener energy. Therefore, our CEO decided to revisit PTT's vision to be in line with the changing energy landscape and the global megatrends. So the new vision of the powering life with future energy and beyond, which was shaped under three key themes: purpose-driven, emphasize our strategic positioning in order to reflect PTT Group business transition. Let me elaborate more on future energy, which is our strategic positioning leads to PT business direction. So from now, we will focus more on future energy trends concerning to clean and environmental friendly by exploring, investing, and adopting those technology to shift from today businesses to future energy businesses. For instance, renewables, battery, energy storage system, EV, and its related infrastructures. We plan to expand in power business by targeting the portfolio investment in conventional gas to power to 8 gigawatt and to expedite our renewable investment to 12 gigawatt in 2030. While beyond implies that business scope is beyond energy, which means that we are stepping out to new potential business that support people's life and drive people well-being, such as life science. We have set up a company named Innobic Asia to invest in pharmaceutical, food and nutrition, as well as medical device businesses. And we also focus into the mobilities and lifestyle for retail business, logistics, digital business based in AI, robotics, and automation. So that would be my brief introduction to the company. You're on mute, Benny.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Ms. Frankan. Thank you for sharing the new vision of the PTT, one of the leading oil and gas companies in the region and also globally. Back to the report. It was presented earlier that 2020 is the lowest point in the oil and gas industry. I mean, there's many ways in saying that, because one of it is because the oil and gas production declined and the demand was deficient. So how do you see the future of the oil and gas industry in the region in this context?
Yes, I think it is undeniable that the COVID-19 pandemic, especially the Delta variant, caused a reduction in the energy consumption in almost every country. So in terms of the oil consumption, the transport sector is still affected from mobility restriction measures, which resulting in the lower usage of the diesel, gasoline, and jet fuels. And on the other hand, gas consumption might not drop that much due to it mainly used in the power generation and in industrial sectors. So going forward to 2022, global oil demand growth should resume as forecasted that the oil demand in quarter two next year will exceed the pre-pandemic at the same period in 2019. And the fear of the Delta variant will motivate some previously unvaccinated people to get shots where available. So travel restrictions should be eased sometime next year with lots of activity resume, and the high vaccination rate will revive the oil demand growth. So in terms of the global oil supply, the supply deficit projected in 2021 will turn into surplus next year, with the return of the US oil production growth. So as a result, the forecasted of oil price in 2022 might be slightly lower than this year due to the downward adjustment of the around 17 million tons per annum, according to the study of Wood Mackenzie. And of the total of the LNG demand, almost 400 million tons in 2022, Asia Pacific account for over 70% of the total, while Europe and the rest of the world shares 22% and 5% respectively. And China will overtake Japan as the world's largest LNG importer, with the rising gas demand, which is seen across all the sector, especially the power generation and industrial fields. In Southeast Asia, LNG demand growth will continue with the economic recovery and falling of the domestic production. Meanwhile, the global energy supply will reach 402 million tons in 2022 with the new trains added and driven by the US and Indonesia Tangguh LNG Train 3. So as a result, global gas and LNG prices are expected to soften post-winter 2022 as Russia's Nord Stream 2, the new export gas pipeline, comes on stream into Europe, and Northeast Asian demands fall. I think that would be my view from now.
Thank you. Thank you, Abe. So despite 2020 is the lowest point that we see, as you said, that you're expecting that the growth will rebound in the futures. Thank you, Ms. Krongkran. We have a few minutes to have a Q&A from the audience. But before that, allow me to recall back the result from our polling before the reports earlier. So my colleague will be able to say if we remember that we have 3 questions. Say that it's going to be the polling one, that how is oil consumption? So as you said, it's generally decreasing. 64% of the audience says decreasing. In terms of the second question, is many say the Indonesia have the highest RRP ratio. Maybe in the volume, maybe it's yes, but in terms of the ratio, reserve for production ratio, it's not Indonesia, as you can see in the report mentioned earlier. And yes, and it is also 52% correctly answered that 72%. So it's between 50 to 75% the share of the oil consumption in the transportation So we still have a few more minutes from on the Q&A discussion. We're getting additional question from the audience. If I can back to Ms. Krongkan, yeah, as you can see also in the polling, that's going to be it's a challenging year for oil and gas industry due to the COVID-19. But we're also experiencing the pressure on the climate change. So can you share your opinion about this issue?
Yes. Yeah, I think COVID-19 is a quite challenging situation from us, and but climate change as well. But I think I will give a bit more weight to the climate change, because the COVID-19 is just started 2 years ago, since December 2019. The energy sector was dramatically affected by the outlook of the pandemic, travel restriction, government imposed of the lockdowns, designed to pause the activities to control the spread of the virus. And that has a very substantial impact on the energy demand. So during the quarantine and lockdown, the measures that were put in place to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 resulted in a significant reduction in the pollutants due to less mobilities and decrease of the electricity demand and industrial production. While this is a positive development in terms of the air quality due to the reduction in greenhouse gases, the COVID-19 crisis has reduced emission. But however, the drop in GHG emission is likely to be unsustainable in the long term. The lockdown imposed across the globe and collapsed the economic activity have caused a large reduction in greenhouse gas emission. For example, in China, industrial shutdowns are estimated to have caused a 25% drop in CO2 emission in February last year. So during the lockdown or the new normal period, people are learning to live and function with the virus. Social distancing, precaution, and other of the new lifestyles. So vaccine innovation to fight with the virus has progressively development. Now we have mRNA vaccine like Pfizer and Moderna, which is are very effective vaccine to reduce the moderate and severe case of the case at the moment. But as more variants of the virus emerge and spread faster and hit harder than their predecessors, so it becomes clear that the mRNA vaccines might not be enough to fight with the variant virus. So I view that by the second quarter next year, we may see the second generation COVID-19 vaccine with the ability to protect against any current and future variants. And once we have that vaccine, the COVID-19 we will be like just like a normal flu, like SARS or bird flu, if you can still remember that. All activities will be back to normal and with the new normal behavior. But for the climate change issue, the energy sector is a key contributor to climate change, accounting for more than 2/3 of the global greenhouse gas emission. So the global energy-related CO2 emission have implied the real emergency situation. Large amount of greenhouse gas are released into the atmosphere as the result of the human activities worldwide, including the burning fossil fuel, which are the majority for electricity generation, heating, transport, and industry. So combustion of the fossil fuel also release air pollutant that harm the environment. So I think the GHG related to energy can be cut in 2 ways, whether source or sink. What I mean by source is by opting for cleaner energy sources, for example, by replacing fossil fuel with the renewable sources like solar or wind. But this has to be carefully transformed as energy security risks still a major concern. And by sink, we can use technology like carbon capture and storage, or CCS, which is proven and safe technology to achieve the climate targets. However, to meet the climate mitigation targets, an estimated of around 2,000 plus large-scale CCS facilities must be deployed by 2050. And there is no doubt that the main challenge to CCS deployment is commercial, because it requires capital-intensive investment. So whether source or sink, we have to wait and see until the technology development and cost to significantly reduce until it can be fully commercialized and functioning in energy sector. And that would be my view.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kronkan, to sharing that. Actually, we almost, run out of the time, but one question that I would like, final question, just to back to the outdoors, Mrs. Suwanto, the question that's, do you have a breakdown of the oil consumption from the transport? And what is the government plan to address the consumption in this sector for the next 5 years? Mr. Suwanto, can I pass it to you, the question?
Thank you, Mr. Benny, for the question. And I think in this report, we like only some of the consumption from transport sector. If you want to look at detail, you might refer to AES or energy data system in our ASEAN Center for Energy website. And then for the government suggestion of road transportation or in transportation sector, I think transport sector is one of the source of greenhouse gas emissions. So in the future, we might promote the sustainable road transportation by switching the oil or gas fuel to electricity or electric vehicle or hydrogen source as the fuel of a vehicle. I think promoting the energy efficiency and then switching to a cleaner fuel in the future is one of the key to create sustainable road transportation in the future.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Suwanto. And that ends our first session on the launching of the ASEAN Oil and Gas report. That I would like to thank you to lead authors, Mrs. Suwanto from ACE, and also our commentator, Mr. Kronkan Karwat from the PTT, for joining with us. Thank you very much. And now we will move to the second report. But before that, to address the question from audience as well, yes, this report is available to be downloaded for free in our website, where you can access all the data and the numbers from this report. My colleagues will also let us share with you the link to download the reports. But now we move to the second reports, the launching of the ASEAN Power Update, where it will be presented by the lead authors, my colleague, Mr. Akbar Dwi Yulianto, or the technical officer as well in the Power, Fossil Fuel, Alternative Energy and Storage Department. He has master's degree from Institute of Technology, Bandung, and he is also one of the researchers in our ASEAN Interconnection Master Plan study. But same with the previous section, before we go with the reports, we'll also invite everyone to join our second polling on the powers update. So if I can have my colleagues to help me with the polling So here we have also 3 questions to ask. First is what is the most progressing energy in 2020? Do you think it will be coal? ASEAN is so famous with the coal, or is it gas, or it's solar? So what is this? And then the second is again, ASEAN is being mentioned very low renewable energy, but so how much the number? Whether it's less than 20%, 20 to 30%, or more than 30%? And how do you see the progress of the renewable energy sector in ASEAN? In the oil and gas report mentioned that it hits the lowest point, very slow. But on the power sectors, how do you see the RE progress? So I would like to invite everyone to join the poll, which will be revealed after the presentation letters. Now I will invite my colleague, Mr. Akbar Dwi Wahyunu, to officially share with us the ASEAN Power Updates 2021. Mr. Akbar, time and screen is yours.
Thank you for your kind introduction, Mr. Benny. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to launch and present the ASEAN Power Updates 2021. As Dr. Nuki said in the opening of the session, the ASEAN region has the most dynamic, fastest growth economy. Therefore, the power sector in the region is becoming an interesting discussion topic for policymakers, private sectors, and also the investors. Here, we are trying to capture the interesting discussion topic through our ASEAN Power Updates. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. This report will provide a comprehensive overview of the electricity and also the renewable progression in city and ASEAN. The data were collected from the various reliable sources, whether it is from official report from the governments, private sector, and the international organization. All of the data are all available in our database system. Next, please. Okay, to start, in the first few pages of this report, it will take us through the power status update in ASEAN. Started with the in 2020, in total, ASEAN had achieved 282 gigawatt of installed power capacity. In the chart bar below, we may see that the proportion of its country member state in total capacity, where 2/3 of the total capacity is accounted from Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. The proportion is mostly driven by the social and economic indicator, especially countries' population and also country gross domestic productions. In terms of the source type, the region is mostly made up of the coal, gas, hydro, which accounted for 80% of the power mix. As mentioned by Dr. Nuki in the opening session, ASEAN is a fast-growing economy. Therefore, ASEAN still need to rely on coal, which to achieve the energy security and resiliency for the region. Which we see the number here, coal accounted for 31.5%. Next slide, please. This part will take us through into more focused observation into what happened in 2020. where there are new record and trends set by the region. Start with the approximately of 22 gigawatt of capacity was added in 2020. This number is much higher compared to the previous years. If we see the additional capacity by source, which is in the right hand pictures, around 18 gigawatt or about 82% of the additional capacity was coming from the renewables. It is a new trend set by the region. The additional capacity, if we would like to observe in terms of the country efforts to their install capacity, mostly ASEAN is accounted by Vietnam, significant increase in solar capacity, and also the new introduction of new hydro capacity. Interesting point is that only oil or diesel power plants having a downward trend, as this is the same trend that we observe in the global trends from the various report that we study. Next slide, please. This part we will observe more on what happened behind the 22 gigawatt of the additional capacity, where we listed the top 10 power project completion in 2020. We see that on the graphic, the fossil fuel power plant indicated by the blue line, and also the renewable indicated by the green bar. We see that it is the region set the largest solar farm in Tuan Nam, Vietnam, and also any largest floating solar power plant in Malaysia, and also happen in Thailand as well. The next slide, please. In this part, we will observe more on the progression of renewable energy in ASEAN, where RE share was at 33.5% in 2020. It is a significant progress because it's only leave us 1.5% gap to the APEC target for having renewable energy in installed capacity by 2025. In detail, if we observe on the progression of the RE from 2005 to 2020, where we see that the ASEAN had been relying on the hydropower and also bioenergy to provide the diversity of the energy sources from the renewables. It changed in the 2015, where we start to see the significant progress of the deployment of solar and wind power. RE share also significantly progressing, which is indicated in the blue line in the left-hand side of the table. We see that it grows from 19.1% in 2005. The later years in 2015, it increased up to 26.5%, and then it moved upward to 29.5% in 2019, and then it significantly jumped into 3.5% in only a year. We will see the reason behind the soaring RE share from 2019 to 2020 in the next slide, but beforehand, you may see the RE share from each member state in the right-hand side here, where despite the RE potential in IMS is varies in potential, but overall, the RE progress for each country already increased in 2020. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, that this part is explaining the behind story of what significant progress on the RE in ASEAN. We try to set the window of observation from the last 5 years, which you can see in the left table, in the left chart here. We were last 5 years between 2016 and 2020. We see that there are significant growth of additional renewables, and it can be notably seen that in 2020 there are increase of 5.1% in only a year due to the additional of 18 megawatt of renewable energy compared to 4 gigawatt of fossil fuels. This increase in RE share is driven by the Vietnam solar significant expand in the last 2 years, in 2019 and also in 2020, and also the Thailand and Philippines start the deployment of the wind power to their respective countries. Next slide, please. In this part, the power projection for 2025 is being presented, and this projection is based by analysis on the existing countries' PDP, and while we also doing the verification to the countries on their projection plan to their power planning. And as we can see that we will expect more renewable will come around in the next 5 years. Of about 60% will be newly installed capacity in the 5 years. But we also, as a result, the RE share will be predicted to exceed the APEC target, which about 2.5 unit % above the regional target, which set by the countries to APEC phase through. And however, we will expect coal still be a major of energy sources in the last 5 years, where 20 gigawatt of coal capacity will come online in 2025. This as a result of ASEAN target to achieve the energy security and affordability for the region. Interesting point also to be noted that there will be a continuous decline on the oil or diesel power plant, where most of these power plant being replaced by the solar and wind, where the diesel power plant usually for fire for the remote islands and for the in remote area. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay. We see that there will be 20 gigawatt of coal still needed in the future, but ASEAN also targeting to maintain their progress of RE share. Therefore, there will be needed to formulate the correct policy to each country to set their target, to achieve their target, and to balance the ASEAN target in achieving the energy sustainability by having renewables and also by having energy security and affordability by deploying coal power plant. Therefore, we collect three and separately categorized into three policy, which is a renewable energy, fossil fuel, and also the additional for electricity tariff relief reduction due to the pandemic. We see that the countries with the development with more advance in the development of RE deployment, like Vietnam, like what happened in Vietnam and Thailand, in Philippines, which have started to apply the supporting policies in the form of feed-in tariff, tax incentive, and some part of the soft loan, where there are also countries which start to promote the clean coal technology to reduce their carbon footprints, but because there will still more coal to come in the next few years. It happened, the country which applying the promotion of clean coal technology, we can see here is Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar. I think that three countries is applying the promotion of clean coal technology. And we can go to the next slide, please. In this part, it is the special topic that our first edition of our updates will cover. The COVID-19 impacts on the power sectors based on the energy insight that we already published in the last year. We observed that there are three impacts on the power sectors due to the current pandemics. The first one is being the power project halted, which evidently happened in Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Philippines, and Vietnam. We will predict that this will cause the capacity addition will fall behind schedule in the next coming years. And the second being the power plant operation interrupted, with infecting the dropping of the revenue for the operating power plants, especially at the peak load generation plants. And lastly, the impact on the power demand decrease, which impacting the disruption of power demand projection. Therefore, the utilities will need to adjust their business plans. Next, please. In this report, we also provide some annexure to complete our analysis, and also could be the good use of the reference. In this first annex, we can see that this is the ASEAN key indicators for social, economic, and energy, where each country growth, GDP and population, and also the installed power capacity numbers being presented. And for the annex 2, next slide, please. Annex 2, it is highlighting the country installed power capacity by source. And Annex 3, highlighting the installed capacity power by 5-year space. And Annex 4, it is to have the detailed read on the ASEAN member state renewable energy targets. And next, please. And we would like to acknowledge the great contribution from the ASEAN member state, HAPA member state, and its colleagues for the great contribution in completing our study and reports. Thank you for listening. that would be my presentation. On the power update, I will get back to Mr. Benny. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Akbar Dwi Wahyuno, for sharing with us the latest situation on the power sectors in ASEAN. And to further discuss about this report, we have a privilege joining with us this afternoon, Puan Insinyur Wan Sakira Wan Abdullah, who are currently the head of business assessment and engineering at the TNB Renewable. Brief introduction: professional engineer. She holds master degree in electrical engineer from Uniten and recently completes a PhD in the same fields. She has more than 20 years experience in power system, including managing transmission network, generating scheduling, and load forecasting. She is also involved in the incentive-based regulation, managing tariff setting mechanism for Peninsula Malaysia. Recent portfolio cover the international and local energy-related business development, focusing on renewable energy, such as solar, mini hydro, biogas, biomass, waste energy, and energy storage. So she's a perfect commentator to join us, considering previously from the report, Mr. Akbar Dwi mentioned that we have a very, very significant achievement of renewable energy in 2020. But Juan, before talking about the report, may I ask you to share more about your work at the TNB and how the TNB Renewables developed the vision on this energy transition?
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Benny. Thank you, Ace, for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me for this session. Well, a bit about myself. I've been in Tenaga Nasional, TNB, for about 20 years already. So covering a few segments of the business in the company, including planning, tariff setting mechanism, and also recently I'm involved in project management and project development, previously for conventional projects, and recently, I think maybe 3 or 4 years already, my involvement in renewable energy projects. As you rightly mentioned just now, TNB Renewables is actually a new entity under TNB, which has been established, I think, in 2018 to focus on developing renewable energy, not only locally in Malaysia, but also internationally. So we focus on renewable energy technologies such as solar, mini hydro, biogas, biomass, energy storage. And also recently, we also look into waste to energy. So those are the spectrum or types of projects that we are looking into. In terms of region, we are very interested in ASEAN region, where we would like to expand our footprint in ASEAN region, and also the regions that we are already in, for example, Europe and also Middle East. So that's briefly on TNB, and also a bit on what TNB is doing now. For your information, TNB is currently managing large-scale solar. We won on the LSS 1, 2, and 4. So we managed to commission the first and the second one on time, and even the second one, despite the COVID environment and etc., we still managed to commission that plant ahead of time, around I think 100 days earlier. And currently we are working very hard to complete the LSS number 4, which we won recently. So that's on LSS, and also we are also actively finding partners to develop and to collaborate on FIT projects. And also we are also active currently on waste to energy segment. For your information, Malaysia recently also launched a few tenders on waste to energy, which TNB Renewables have an intention to participate. So those are kind of initiative that we are currently doing under TNB to support the government's policy to achieve around 31% of RE penetration by 2025. So I think Malaysian target is very in line with other countries' target as well when I look into the report just now. And I'm very glad to see that our region are very serious going into deployment of RE technologies and also towards a more sustainable energy. Thank you, Benny.
Thank you, Juan. That's going to be, it's going to be, it's very interesting development for the last 5 years. And then you say now TNB is also become more and more serious on this renewable energy business, and this definitely will push more the efforts not only in Malaysia but also in ASEAN levels. So back to the report that the report say that it's renewable energy is the king. Right, it's going to be, if I allow to use that term, that's going to be 2020 is a success year for the renewable energy in the region. And then we are expecting to have a target in 2025 of regional levels. And one of our audience also mentioned about let's gear up for the highest target. But how do you see this trend in the future in ASEAN?
Looking back at your report also, it's very obvious that RE is the thing, the in thing, not only in Malaysia, but also in ASEAN region specifically. Even for TNB, we have pledged that there's no more new coal generation that will be in line in the future. We only will maintain whatever we have in the pipeline, but there's no more new ones coming up. So meaning that the new upcoming power generations will be the cleaner energy that I can say, probably from gas, and a lot more contribution from RE. So we can see that the deployment of solar not only in Malaysia, but we can see our neighbor, for example, Vietnam, are very aggressive in deploying solar, for example. So I can say for sure that RE is the way to go, not only for Malaysia, but also our neighboring countries, especially in ASEAN. So I'm actually very excited and looking forward to contribute in this space, especially when RE is the main focus for the next probably 10-20 years down the road. So that's my view.
Thank you, Juan. That's going to be, before we go with the Q&A discussion with the audience, I think we have a lot of questions. But perhaps we just recall back the polling that we have earlier, whether the audience is also sharing the same view with us. So thinking similar with the finding from their report. So can I ask the help from my colleagues to also ask again? Right. I mean, it's going to be 59% saying solar has a significant progress. It's obvious. I mean, it's also can see in the reports. In fact, I think it's like 60% of the new install capacity is coming. There's around 12 gigawatt. The new install capacity in 2020 is coming from solar alone. So it's a great achievement. But still, many of you think that the share of renewable energy is less than 20%. Maybe it's also some question that whether large hydro is also considered as a renewable energy. Just to respond to that question, I think a country may have a different definition, but on the regional level, we counted all size of hydro as a renewable energy. This is also highlighted in the report that can be seen. And last question is, what do you think the RE progress? since many people say slowly progressing, but only 4% saying not progressing. So I think it's a very good hope in terms of renewable energy development in region. Okay, that's a result from our polling. That just go back with the Q&A. I think we can bring the discussion that we have on this report. Again, if I just turn back to the point that 2020, I mean, until today, we're still experiencing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. But many say, I mean, it's also based on several studies that we have conducted, the renewable energy is considered the resilience option compared to the others power plant, and renewable energy expected to lead to the recovery path in the post-pandemic era. Would you mind to share your view on this issue?
Okay, based on my experience, I've handled a few projects during this pandemic years. I mean, this 1 or 2 years. Yeah, for me, the delay we cannot avoid due to this pandemic. I really hope that we can recover very, very fast after this so that we can catch up. But for me, if this trend is prolonged, it might impact the deliverables or delivery of projects, especially in our space, renewable energy projects. But for TNB, we are very committed, especially to deliver our whatever that we have promised on time. But also bear in mind that if this COVID situation prolong, I think it will hit us some way or another. Yeah, really hope that we can recover this period very, very fast.
Thank you, Bo. And that's going to be just a follow-up discussion on that one. It's the current situation is quite challenging, but we managed to, I mean, ASEAN collectively managed to have a significant progress on renewable energy. But I mean, as also report from my colleague Akbar mentioned earlier, until 2025, actually, we will be able to achieve more than what the region target already. But the fact that we can't neglect is still, there is still quite a portion of the power coming from the fossil fuels, particularly on the coal issue that will be. Would you mind to share also upon your views that maybe answer the question or some audience that addressing why still coal to be part of it? I mean, why can we just leave it all immediately as we are already on the right track on the renewable energy? Why coal is still there? Yeah. One, if I can share it back to you.
Yeah, the main issue is the energy trilemma, right? We have to address the affordability also in terms of delivering energy to people. So that is why coal, I think, is still in the equation. We cannot discount it 100%, but for our commitment for a more sustainable energy and etc., we're trying our best to avoid or to move away from coal as much as we want it. But of course, the affordability is also the things that we need to consider, that probably not all of us are still can afford greener energy that probably will cost more for people to pay. So I think this will take some time until this green energy can be more affordable in our region. Hopefully by that time, when we are ready, then the technology and the infrastructure also is ready to cater the demand at that point of time.
Okay. Thank you, Mohan. That we also have a time constraint. So I just go back with Akbar, the lead authors. They are asking, this is zero geothermal in 2020. I mean, so can you respond why? And then, but in your last slide is also saying that there is another expected 4 gigawatt geothermal will to be installed for the next 5 years. Can you share your views on this geothermal issue, Mr. Akbar? You are muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Benny, for the excellent question, and also for, I think it's from Tong Win for the question. I tried to answer it. The geothermal power plants, it is the power plant that may require significant effort to be completed, the project. I mean, it starts from the exploration stage until the utilization. If we look into the existing project which come online in previous years, to build the power plant, geothermal power plant, it takes in average of 7 until 10 years in Indonesia, and the COVID-19 pandemic certainly halted the movement of the progression of geothermal power plant. But for the future, I think as the technology become much mature in geothermal, especially for the high temperature region like Indonesia and Philippines, and also for the lower temperature area, we will see increasing number of geothermal power plant in the futures. Yeah, and also the addition of the maybe in 2020. I think I wish I could answer the question. Back to you, Mr. Benny.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Akbar. I think we have a small glitch, but I think we got the concern. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Akbar. It's leads us to the end of our session on the launching update of the ASEAN power reports. So I'd like to thank you, the lead authors and also presenter, Mr. Akbar Dwi Wahyono, as well as to Puan Sakira for joining us in the discussion on this power updates. I think just to conclude it, and many doubt about the ASEAN effort on renewable energy, but from this report, they can learn that it's going to be ASEAN is doing, if I am allowed to say that, doing a very great job in 2020, despite this COVID-19 pandemic, is 82%. I think this is something that we need to fully recognize. 82% of the new installed capacity in 2020 is coming from renewable energy. So more detail about this, everyone can access it and read it in the report, because as also being shown, there is a complete table. You can get exactly how much the numbers from all of this information. So once again, thank you very much. That's end of our update on the ASEAN power sectors, and it also lead to the end of the event today's. I still have just a few finals point to be shared. But once is the board report is available to be accessed in our website. My colleague has already shared the link in the chat, so feel free to access it. Feel free to download and read the report. And if I have any question, feel free to back to us with your query or question, and would like to hear more from you about this report. And another report that I'd like to also share is 2 recent reports. We have the hydrogen report, which is launched a couple of weeks ago, which look the prospect of the hydrogen in the ASEAN on this development application. But they also have a question from everyone, the coal report, the new role of coal-fired power plant in the era of the energy transition. So link of the report can be accessed as well from the chat that being shared by my colleagues. Next slide is an invitation to invite everyone to join our biggest event every year. In this year, the ASEAN Energy Business Forum, where we will have the 10 ministers from ASEAN countries and global energy leaders join with us in the discussion to shaping the directive of the energy transition in the region. So please feel free to access the link and get yourself registered to this important event. I think this is the only event region where you can sit down virtually with all of the 10 ministers on energy in ASEAN. Next thing also joining us, it's also the same week's part of the ASEAN Energy Business Forum as well. We organized the first ASEAN International Conference on Energy and Environment. And you will hear around 15 presentation from the scholars who researcher on the energy and the climate change issue in the region to address the topic of the ASEAN energy transition with the resiliency in the post-pandemic climate change era. There's a free registration that can be accessed. Feel free to look more in the details into the link that's being provided. Then I think that will be end of my presentation. Feel free to access our website and social media to learn more and get or download all the reports from ACE or also from our project, the ASEAN Climate Change Energy Project, or you want to also get in touch to be involved in our ASEAN Researcher Network on Energy and Climate Change, feel free to also click the link and join the discussion. Then together we can build communication, collaboration to shape the energy transition in the region. That will conclude, I think that will conclude my presentation. Thank you very much on behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy. I would like to thank you to all the lead authors who presented the report today, to our commentators, Ms. Krongkan from PTT and also Puan Sekira from TNB Renewables for joining with us the discussion, and all of the audience for also joining the discussion with us, engage the discussion. Hope to see you again in the next event. So once again, thank you very much, and this is the end of our event today. Thank you and bye-bye.
Everyone, and bye-bye.